to know. Oh. That's not it, you dummy. Oh, okay. This could be it. Look at that. Ha ha. You get a picture like this on the front. It's going to show you both systems. Make sure you know both systems, all right? If I could make it in color, it would be a lot easier, but we'll determine that at the time of the exam. I'll let you know what side is what color and what side is the other color is on the other side, okay? So, for the cardiovascular system, you need to know both systemic and pulmonary circuits. What's traveling in them, how do they move, what's the purpose? Okay? Secondly, you need to know the different parts or the part of the brain that's controlling the heart activity. Where's that located? What's its name? What kind of functions does it carry out? You need to know what the volume of the blood in the system is. How much blood is actually pumping through the system? You need to be able to recognize the path of blood flow. In case of a blockage, what's going to occur? Be aware of the alternative flow, the direction in which it's flowing. What is it called? What is the hormonal effect on the blood pressure? To increase or decrease? What causes vasodilation, vasoconstriction? Ms. Sutphin, you got that? Ms. Sutphin, you got that?
Yeah.
Right, that's a question you just asked me. Okie doke. Sounds like a plan, all right? Next, you need to know the pressure differences between the two systems, between the arterial system versus the venous system. What's the pressure differences and why? What's the purpose and the difference between an ECG and an EKG? What are they? One is American, the other is German. What are the multitude of causes, the different causes of hypertension? So you need to know what is hypertension. You got that Bible book, so make sure you know the prefixes and the suffixes. We're talking about tension where? It's hypertension. That a lot or a little?
A lot.
You need to know all the component parts of the heart. Know that it's a one-way direction, and be able to identify those components. What are the effects of the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system, or the rate, or on the rate of heart contraction, like epinephrine, norepinephrine? What different pressures that is? Hydrostatic pressure, interstitial pressure, colloid pressure, osmotic pressures, all of that alphabet soup, that BHP, IFOP, BCOP, how do they all work and which ones work with filtration? And what are the significant differences between the heart components from left to the right sides, from the left side compared to the right side? You need to know the different phases of the cardiac cycle. Diastole, systole, what's going on between the atria and the ventricles. If we go back to the beginning, remember you got to know the composition of blood, all the differences in the formed elements versus plasma. What's the compression, what's the concentration of each? What makes up a drop of blood? What's the volume again and the blood in the system? What's pumping through? We got that already. How's the movement of nutrients and wastes going through the cardiovascular system? The heart makes some sounds. How are those sounds made? Where are they made and how are they made? What is a pacemaker? There's the natural one in our bodies and there's a man-made one. How do they work? How do they perform? What are they called? Where are they located? Know the differences between the walls of arteries and veins. How much muscle's in this and how much muscle's not in that. Why is there more muscle in this and why is there less muscle in that? Also know about the differences in the continuous versus fenestration versus sinusoid capillaries. What are the differences? Make sure you got a thorough understanding of the ABO blood system. What is agglutination? A perfusion? What's the purpose of having a blood typing test? What are the differences and the purposes of each type of white blood cell versus red blood cell? We talk about granulocytes and agranulocytes and lymphocytes. The organization of the arterial and venous systems, especially know about anastomosis or anastomoses. Yeah, I'm giving you too much stuff here, but that's what I got. All right, let's see, what else we got? Running this stuff down. Know the composition of the heart wall, the different layers. What are they called? Where are they located? What are their functions? Be prepared for several questions about the different factors that cause vasoconstriction and vasodilation. We mentioned emotion, sphincters. We talked about hormones, the nervous system. Again, white blood cells, the difference between B and T cells, the difference between granulocytes and agranulocytes. That's the range. They're having target practice. Stop, or I'll shoot. Okay. What are the differences between a hematocrit, a CBC panels, all right? We got low hematocrit, high hematocrit. Why? What does it mean? We mentioned polycythemia. What are the different inflammatory responses? How do they begin? What is released? What occurs when we have the release of something? Your cardiac output, your heart rate, your stroke volume. What and how do these values change? Do they change your heart rate? So it's all a matter of cardiac output. What are the factors? The multitude of factors involving resistance. The resistance to the blood flowing through the vessels. What's the purpose of an angiogram? What are baroreceptors and what do they do? We mentioned a little bit about fetal circulation, so have a clue about that. Lastly, the process of blood becoming oxygenated, how those particular cells arrive at their destinations, and what happens after they make their delivery. So if you know all of those things that I just mentioned, you got an A. Okay? Piece of cake. How's that grab you? Right by the throat? We got 11, 10, 12 minutes of information. That'll do it. That'll be that's your review, okay? Again, you're going to have 50 regular multiple choice questions.